an NDTV Profit exclusive now, that relief is likely to be limited when we talk about Vodafone Idea in the additional AGR dues saga. In fact, our colleague Danish is joining it with more details on the exclusives, and then we will take it to the experts to weigh in on whether or not Vodafone Idea could be a good investment on the expectation of AGR dues relief. And the second, any investor coming in expecting some relief or additional relief from the government. This is the big question that we are asking at Markets at 12 today. Danish, over to you on what is the clarification you're getting from your government sources.
Well, sources have told NDTV Profit that the government is weighing an option of removing the duplicate charges and other calculation errors in the additional AGR demand that DOT had furnished to Vodafone Idea. Well, sources have further told us that whatever relief that Vodafone Idea will get from the DOT side will be in line with the Supreme Court's order of giving relief only on the additional AGR dues demand of 9,450 crore rupees, which was till FY17. Sources have also told us that the government is considering this option after Vodafone Idea had highlighted the same in the previous few hearings, and to be sure, the top court also had made it clear that whatever relief that it has instructed DOT to give to Vodafone Idea is because of the magnitude of how big Vodafone Idea is, and that any impact that could be there in the company could impact 20 crore customers and also thousands of its employees, which could jeopardize their future. So in order to give slight relief to Vodafone Idea, the top court has already instructed DOT to give some kind of relief to Vodafone Idea, and moreover DOT and other concerned ministries are also in touch with SG's office to consider the next few steps. But all in all, if we see that whatever relief that Vodafone Idea will get now will be only on the 9,450 crore rupees amount and not on the overall AGR dues of 83,000 crore rupees. And this development has come at that point in time when Vodafone Idea is supposed to make its first major AGR installment of 18,000 crores by 31st March 2026. So all in all, if we see, sources have told NDTV Profit that the government is considering to remove the duplication of charges and other calculation errors as highlighted by Vodafone Idea in the past few hearings, and whatever relief that Vodafone Idea gets will only be till the FY17 period.
All right, Danish. So clearly government sources telling us that in AGR relief, it is limited to the petition and some double calculation or erroneous calculations. Now, Vodafone Idea, remember, is back in focus 6 years after Kumar Mangalam Birla's famous remark about not putting good money after bad. The company has raised funds, converted debt and hiked tariffs, but the numbers still tell a tough story for this company. Soumit, our colleague, breaks down whether this really is a breather for Vodafone Idea or just another pause. Soumit.
Recent news reports which suggest that there could be a potential FI investor who might look to buy some stake and infuse funds in the company does remind me of Kumar Mangalam Birla's statement that he had made back in December 2019. He clearly said it does not make sense to put good money in the bad business, and the statement was made by Kumar Mangalam Birla back in 2019 when AGR dues were asked to be recovered from this company. So a lot has changed since then. What are the changes that have happened? The company has done a fundraise, a follow-on public offer was done of close to 18,000 crore rupees. It has converted debt into equity. Government has bought stake and converted debt worth nearly 53,000 crore rupees, which has been converted into equity. Apart from this, there have been 3 rounds of tariff hike, one in 2019, one in 2021 and one in 2024. But despite these changes, what has not changed for Vodafone Idea? In FY20, the revenue stood at close to 45,000 crore rupees. In FY25, in fact, this has come down to 43,570, and this is despite the fact that there have been 3 tariff hikes that have been taken by the company. If you look at the bottom line, the loss number in FY20 stood at close to 73,878 crore rupees. The company is still loss-making. In FY25, the loss number stood at close to 27,380 crore rupees. And this nothing has changed for the company so far because of the massive customer losses that the company has been seeing currently. Now, what is the investor seeking who is looking to invest funds into the company? They're asking Indian government to provide a package covering all liabilities of the company. So what are these liabilities that the FI investor wants government to cover? Now, if you look at the overall debt or overall government dues on Vodafone Idea, the number stands at close to 1.99 lakh crore rupees, and this is inclusive of the deferred spectrum payment and the AGR liabilities. If we break this down, the AGR amount comes to close to 77,500, while the spectrum debt stands at close to 1.2 lakh crore rupees. And what are the upcoming payments that are there for Vodafone Idea? Regarding AGR installment, at the end of FY26, the company needs to pay close to 16,400 crore rupees. When it comes to the spectrum dues, it needs to pay close to 2,640, and it also needs to pay a bank debt of close to 1,720 crore rupees. So for in the next 1 year, Vodafone Idea needs to make a payment of close to 20,760 crore rupees. This number is nearly double of the cash EBITDA that the company is expected to generate in FY26, which the number stands at close to 10,000 crore rupees. So it's highly unlikely that the company will be able to make these payments over the next 1 year, and they definitely need a relief. But what kind of relief will it come from the government side is something that we need to watch.
All right, thanks so much, Somit, for giving an exhaustive research on the pain points of Vodafone Idea. We have two experts joining us to take us through what we should really make of the news developments and also the AGR relief, and whether for the investors it makes for a profitable investment or not. Piyush Pandey, who's a telecom analyst with Centrum Broking, and Swapnil Kothari, senior lawyer at Supreme Court, join us. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining us on NDTV Profit. First to you, Swapnil, one important aspect that the market is expecting, and even the prospective investors could be expecting, as we saw in a report, is additional relief coming in from the government. From the Supreme Court's judgment, what do you make of the petition-restricted AGR relief, or can the scope be widened? Our sources from government say that it is restricted to petition.
Well, it is definitely restricted to the petition, what is there before the Supreme Court. So no question about that. So two sides can argue only about what is there in the petition. But nothing stops the government tomorrow from giving an additional relief if it so wants, because there is a government investment in this particular company. So that is the reason why the government today had a different stance altogether. And it tweaked a little bit, its stand a little bit, and tried to ensure that things are hunky-dory. And even if should they to win and go all hammer and tongs, it's going to upset the investor. So obviously the government doesn't want that the kitty should increase, especially when they have an investment, but it is at the cost of the investors, or it is at the cost of the consumers, about 20 crore consumers of Vodafone across the country. So Nisha, that is a catch-22 situation. So the government has to walk a very, very fine line into ensuring that it sticks to some of its guns, but at the same time disarms itself on some aspects and says that, okay, we'll grant you this relief and we'll try to do this. And so the adjusted gross revenue, which seems to be the bone of the contention, will have to be reduced to a significant extent to ensure that all the parameters are met and Vodafone continues to be perceived as some sort of a profitable company, so as to not shoo away the investors or dissuade other consumers from coming into the picture. So that is something which they need to look at. But what you've heard from the government sources is right, that what is there before the Supreme Court is to be argued before the Supreme Court. But I repeat that nothing stops the government from going beyond the parameters, and ultimately it's a policy decision between the government and the Vodafone. It's not some sort of a fixed law that the government has to follow. It's some sort of a policy decision that it has to make, that whether we should relax it or we should not relax it. It's entirely the government's prerogative. And a year ago, the Supreme Court judgment was there against Bharti and Airtel. And that is something which the government will always remember that. And,
yes.
It will keep into account that, okay, that didn't really work out the way it should have worked out eventually in the long run.
Yes.
So let us look at the long-term perspective and not at the short-term gains.
Right. So, Piyush Pandey, how critical is the additional relief which the market is expecting, but we are not hearing that is imminent at the particular moment? And as Swapnil also indicated, that at least from the legal point of view, that's not the case. How critical is this additional relief, and do you think that it can attract investors without that relief?
See, additional relief of around 9,000 crore rupees would be somewhat inadequate. And I expect that relief should be cover at least interest and penalty part of close to 40,000 crores. In that case, the total debt can come down from 2 lakh crores to roughly 1.6 lakh crores. And this is where I would say additional investors would be looking to invest further cash in the company. So I would say currently Vodafone continues to lose customers, debt remains very high, and it needs to get cash to do its capex for its 4G and 5G networks. So I would say, as an investment, things remain bit uncertain going ahead, but it depends on like the amount of funding infusion it is manages to attract. Plus, any relief from the government should be substantial, because in the absence of any relief, substantial relief, Vodafone might have to come back to the government maybe next year for additional reliefs. So that is something which is creating uncertainty for the investors, for the who wants to like say join.
So, in the light of the uncertainty that's there, Piyush, if nothing changes from this particular stance, what is your fair price value that you estimate for Vodafone Idea? What do you suggest for the investors? And second, how do you also see Indus Towers prospects in the light of this development?
See, Vodafone Idea is competing with two much bigger players like say Bharti Airtel and Reliance Jio. So both are much better capitalized, much larger players in terms of number of subscribers, much higher ARPU. Plus, they have completed their 5G expansion also. So I would say the peer set, I would say it remains very daunting. And for Vodafone Idea, since it is facing multiple challenges, losing customers, losses at the PAT level, huge amount of debt. So I would say for near term, I would say it doesn't look a great investment case, right? Because you're competing with somebody who is a much stronger player, like say. So as I said, like say, for an investor, I would say who wants to invest in telecom sector, currently Bharti looks good. And in fact, for any sort of relief to Vodafone Idea, Indus Tower can be better play. So as Vodafone does its capex in expanding its towers, plus meeting its operational expenses, so that is something which can add value and plus to Indus Tower. So that can be secondary play in the telecom sector. Apart from, I would say, the bigger players are much better placed to write this story of growing ARPU, and they have a steadily growing customer base.
Right. Thanks so much, Piyush, for getting us your views on this. But uncertainty remains when it comes to any additional relief can be given or not. And the second important aspect to watch out for here is going to be also the other issues in Vodafone Idea, whether it's able to combat without additional relief coming in. But the government is the single largest owner of Vodafone Idea with 49% stake. Whether it can give unlimited relief to this company which it holds also needs to be seen closely. Thank you so much, Swapnil and Piyush, for joining us completely out of time on this edition of Markets at 12.